The grand amphitheater of the Galactic Assembly buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from over 300 species filled the vast chamber, their bodies a kaleidoscope of forms, colors, and bioluminescent displays. In the central presentation area, Captain Alina Reyes stood motionless, her dark uniform crisp against the silver platform. At 45, Alina had seen much during her career with the Earth Space Command. She'd fought in the Mars Rebellion, negotiated the Jupiter Mining Accords, and led first contact with the Proxima Centauri civilization. But today's mission was different. Today, she represented not just a planetary interest, but humanity's greatest achievement and its future. The Earth Alliance presents the Nexus Horizon, Alina announced, her voice steady despite the growing murmurs from the alien representatives. Humanity's first seventh-dimensional vessel. With a subtle gesture, she activated the hologram. Above the platform, a sleek craft materialized, its gunmetal exterior adorned with subtle blue highlights that traced what appeared to be perfectly ordinary thruster ports and navigation systems. The silence lasted precisely 3 seconds before the first chuckle emerged, a bubbling sound from the gelatinous Morrigan delegation. Within moments, the entire chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien laughter, clicking mandibles, booming bass rumbles, high-pitched whistles, each species expressing amusement in their own way, but all united in mockery. Dr. Nasir Khan, the project's chief engineer, stood to Alina's right. His hands curled into fists as he fought to maintain his professional demeanor. 6 years of work, countless sleepless nights, and 3 brilliant minds lost to radiation accidents during testing, all being laughed at by beings who couldn't begin to comprehend what humans had accomplished. Ambassador Zilf of the Arcturus Dominion, a 12-foot-tall being with crystalline extensions protruding from a blue-scaled body, rose from his seat. His translator module projected his voice throughout the chamber. Captain Reyes, the ambassador's voice dripped with condescension. Even our juveniles understand that biological beings cannot survive seventh-dimensional transit without quantum stabilizers and reality anchors. Where are your dimensional buffers? Your entropy fields? The laughter intensified. A rust-colored Velkin delegate pointed a spindly limb at the hologram. Look at their design. They believe seventh-dimensional travel is possible with conventional propulsion housing. They've built a primitive 4-dimensional craft and called it dimensional. Alina remained impassive, though a muscle in her jaw twitched almost imperceptibly. The mockery wasn't unexpected. Earth's intelligence services had warned that the galactic community wouldn't believe their breakthrough was real. Most spacefaring species had spent millennia trying to master higher dimensional travel, investing trillions in increasingly complex technology. Yet here stood humanity, barely 3 centuries into space exploration, claiming to have solved what the ancient races could not. The Nexus Horizon doesn't just survive seventh-dimensional space, Alina stated, raising her voice above the laughter. It thrives in it. We've successfully tested it. Ambassador Zilf's crystalline protrusions glowed bright orange, a sign of amusement among his kind. Perhaps in simulations, Captain, or perhaps in dreams. Your species is known for its imagination. Our demonstration flight is scheduled for next month. Alina continued undeterred. The Earth Alliance extends an invitation to all member species to observe. We wouldn't miss it, the Velkin delegate chittered. Such entertainment is rare in assembly proceedings. As Alina and Nasir left the presentation platform, the chamber filled with continued jeers and jests. In the preparation room behind the main hall, Earth's diplomatic team waited. Ambassador Weilin, a veteran of 20 years in galactic politics, handed Alina a glass of water. That went exactly as expected, Wei noted, her expression neutral. They think we're fools, Nasir muttered, finally allowing his frustration to show. 6 years of groundbreaking work, and they laugh like we're children showing off crayon drawings. Alina set the glass down without drinking. Good. Wei and Nasir exchanged glances. Let them laugh, Alina continued, her dark eyes reflecting the light from the distant stars visible through the station's viewport. Let them mock. Let them think we're naive children playing with toys. She turned to face her team, a smile slowly spreading across her face. In precisely 28 days, when the Nexus horizon demonstrates what seventh-dimensional transit truly means, the laughter will stop. What the assembly didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, was that humans had approached the dimensional problem from an entirely different angle. While other species had spent millennia building increasingly complex technology to force their way through dimensional barriers, Dr. Maya Chen had discovered something revolutionary 5 years earlier. In her small laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Chen had been watching water flow around obstacles in a stream. The simple observation had prompted a question that would change everything. What if dimensions weren't walls to break through but currents to flow with? Maya never lived to see her theory proven. She died during the third prototype test, her body transformed at the cellular level by an unexpected dimensional shift. But her work lived on through Monsieur and the team, culminating in the Nexus horizon, a ship that didn't fight against dimensional barriers but harmonized with them. As Elena stared at the alien vessels docked outside, she felt a mix of determination and something else. Pity, perhaps. The species that had laughed at humanity today had no idea what was coming. They had become so entrenched in their understanding of physics that they couldn't conceive of alternatives. Ambassador Lin, Elena said quietly, make sure our defense grid is at full readiness. Wei's expression remained diplomatic, but her eyes sharpened. You anticipate hostilities. I anticipate fear, Elena replied. And fear makes people, regardless of species, do desperate things. As the Earth delegation prepared to return to their ship, whispers already spread throughout the station. The humans were building an impossible ship. The humans were delusional. The humans would fail spectacularly. Let them whisper, Elena thought. The universe was about to change. 23 days later, in the isolated testing facility orbiting Titan, Dr. Nasir Khan stood before a viewport, watching as robotic arms made final adjustments to the Nexus horizon's exterior. The ship looked deceptively conventional, a sleek craft approximately 300 meters long with smooth contours that most spacefaring races would recognize as a standard deep space vessel. The deception was intentional. What made the Nexus horizon revolutionary wasn't visible from the outside. Final diagnostics are complete. Lieutenant Sophia Dias reported from her console. Core stability at 99.7%. Dimensional harmonizers aligned within 0.003 tolerance. Nasser nodded, his reflection in the reinforced glass showing a man who hadn't slept properly in days. Dark circles framed intense eyes that had seen too much brilliance and tragedy. 3 of his colleagues, including Maya Chen, had died developing this technology. He wouldn't let their sacrifices be in vain. Begin pre-launch sequence, he ordered. And someone find Captain Reyes. Elena was already approaching, her footsteps echoing in the observation deck. She'd spent the morning reviewing security protocols with Admiral Harrison, Earth's most decorated military commander. The Admiral hadn't hidden his skepticism about the project, but he'd assigned 3 battle cruisers to protect the testing site nonetheless. Dr. Khan, Elena acknowledged. Are we ready? As ready as we'll ever be, Nasser replied. The harmonizers are performing better than expected. Dr. Chen's theoretical models predicted 85% efficiency, but we're seeing nearly 97%. Elena studied the ship through the viewport. The Volusian ambassador sent another message. They're questioning why we won't disclose the testing coordinates. Because they'd bring their entire fleet to watch us fail, Nasser said, bitterness edging his voice. Or worse, Elena added quietly. Intelligence reports suggested that several species were more concerned than amused by humanity's claims. The Arcturus Dominion had repositioned 2 battle groups closer to Earth space in the past week. The official explanation was a training exercise, but Admiral Harrison wasn't convinced. Final crew briefing in 20 minutes, Elena said. We launch in 4 hours. The briefing room filled quickly with the 20 crew members selected for this historic mission. They represented Earth's finest: pilots, engineers, physicists, and soldiers, all trained extensively on the theory and practice of seventh-dimensional navigation. Elena stood before them, her presence commanding immediate attention. "Today we prove that humanity belongs among the stars," she began. "Not as latecomers or junior partners, but as innovators. For too long, we've been treated as primitive newcomers to a universe that other species claim to understand better than we do. Today, that changes." She activated the room's holographic display, showing a detailed cross-section of the Nexus horizon. Unlike conventional ships that attempt to punch through dimensional barriers using brute force and massive energy expenditures, the Nexus horizon utilizes dimensional harmonics. Dr. Chen discovered that dimensions aren't separate layers to be pierced, but interconnected streams that naturally flow together. The hologram shifted to display complex wave patterns that intersected and merged across multiple axes. "These are dimensional currents," Nasir explained, taking over the briefing. "Traditional ships try to create temporary tunnels between dimensions, requiring enormous power and creating dangerous instabilities. We're doing something fundamentally different. We're going to flow with the currents." Lieutenant Commander Jackson, their pilot, raised a hand. "Sir, all simulations show that human consciousness experiences severe trauma in higher dimensions. How will we navigate?" Nasir smiled for the first time that day. "That's the beauty of Dr. Chen's discovery. Human consciousness is actually 7-dimensional by nature. Our perception is limited to 4 dimensions not because of biological limitations, but because of conditioning. The Nexus horizon doesn't just transport our bodies. It unlocks our minds." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. What made humans different from the ancient species wasn't technology but perception. The ability to adapt, to see beyond conventional limitations, to imagine possibilities rather than accept established facts. "There will be disorientation," Elena cautioned. "The simulations can only partially prepare you for what it feels like when your consciousness expands. Trust your training. Trust the ship, and most importantly, trust yourselves." 4 hours later, the Nexus horizon detached from its docking clamps. Its conventional thrusters pushed it clear of the testing facility as the skeleton crew of 20 settled into their positions. Elena sat in the command chair, reviewing final system checks. Around her, the bridge crew worked with focused intensity, each aware of the historical significance of this moment. "All stations report ready, Captain," Sophia announced. "Core harmonizers at optimal frequency," Nasir added from engineering. "We can initiate dimensional shift at your command." Elena took a deep breath. Somewhere in the void, 3 Earth battle cruisers maintained a protective perimeter around their testing zone. Intelligence couldn't confirm whether alien observers had located them despite the secrecy, but it hardly mattered now. In minutes, they would either revolutionize space travel or join the list of failed human ambitions mocked throughout the galaxy. "Lieutenant Commander Jackson, take us clear of Saturn's gravitational influence." "Dr. Khan, begin core activation sequence." The ship moved smoothly, its conventional engines pushing it toward the designated testing coordinates. On the main view screen, Saturn's magnificent rings tilted as they adjusted course. "Approaching optimal position," Jackson reported. Conventional engines performing at 100%. "Core activation initiated," Nasir's voice came through the comm system. "Harmonizers responding within parameters. Dimensional resonance detected." Elena's grip tightened on the arms of her command chair. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. "Initiate dimensional shift," she ordered, her voice steady. "Take us to the 7th dimension." The bridge lights dimmed momentarily as power redirected to the core. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to happen. Then, reality itself began to change. It started with colors, new ones that human eyes had never seen before, bleeding into existence around the edges of familiar objects. The view screen showed Saturn stretching, not physically but conceptually, as if the planet existed in multiple states simultaneously. Core at 15% capacity, Nasir reported, his voice strangely distorted. Dimensional boundaries becoming permeable. Elena felt it then, a sensation of expansion, as if her consciousness was stretching beyond her body. She could somehow perceive the entire ship at once, from multiple angles simultaneously. The bridge crew experienced it too. She could see it in their widening eyes and quickened breathing. "This is," Sophia whispered, "I can see everything." 30% capacity, Nasir announced. Dimensional shift accelerating. The universe around them began to unfold. Elena suddenly understood why ancient species had built such complex machines to navigate higher dimensions. Without preparation, without the right frame of mind, this experience would be maddening. But humans, with their ability to adapt, to imagine, to perceive beyond literal reality, were uniquely suited for this journey. 50% capacity, Nasir called out. "We're approaching seventh dimensional threshold." The view screen no longer showed conventional space. Instead, it displayed patterns of energy and probability that flowed like rivers through what had once seemed empty. Saturn wasn't just a planet anymore. It was a nexus of potentialities, existing across multiple timelines and dimensional planes simultaneously. Full dimensional shift in 3, 2, 1. The Nexus horizon didn't tear through reality like alien ships did. It didn't force its way between dimensions with brute technological power. Instead, it merged with the dimensional currents, becoming part of the flow rather than fighting against it. In an instant, they were everywhere and nowhere. The ship existed across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously, moving through space-time in ways that conventional physics couldn't describe. And through it all, the crew remained conscious, their minds expanded rather than broken by the experience. They were navigating the unnavigable, perceiving the imperceptible, achieving what the oldest species in the galaxy had deemed impossible. Dimensional shift complete. Nasir's voice came through, filled with awe and triumph. "We're fully immersed in seventh dimensional space." Elena looked around the bridge, seeing her crew not just as they were, but as they could be, their potential states overlapping with their physical forms. "Navigation," she addressed Jackson, who was staring at his console with newfound understanding. "Take us home." 5 days later, the Nexus horizon approached the demonstration coordinates near Jupiter's orbit. Representatives from 27 galactic species had gathered to witness what they still believed would be humanity's greatest embarrassment. Their vessels formed a massive observation ring around the designated area, a collection of the most advanced ships in known space. Elena stood on the bridge of the Nexus horizon, now fully crewed with 100 of Earth's finest. Their test flight had been more successful than even the most optimistic projections. Not only had they achieved stable seventh-dimensional transit, but they discovered capabilities that no one had anticipated. The ship could exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. It could perceive potential futures and navigate around them. It could move not just through space, but through layers of reality that other species couldn't even detect. "All systems optimal, Captain," Sophia reported. "Core harmonizers at standby capacity." Incoming transmission from the Arcturus flagship, Lieutenant Park announced from communications. Elena nodded. On screen, Ambassador Zilth's crystalline form appeared, his blue scales reflecting light from multiple sources, his translator module activated with a soft pulse. "Captain Reyes," the ambassador began, his tone the same condescending drawl from the assembly presentation. "The gathered delegations are eager to witness your demonstration. We've positioned scientific vessels at key observation points to record this historic moment." Elena noted what the ambassador didn't say, that the scientific vessels were heavily armed and strategically positioned. Intelligence reports had confirmed what she'd suspected. Several species weren't simply here to observe. They were here to ensure that if humanity had somehow achieved a technological breakthrough, it wouldn't survive to change the galactic balance of power. "We appreciate your interest, Ambassador," Alina replied diplomatically. The demonstration will begin in 30 minutes. I suggest all vessels maintain their current positions for optimal viewing. As the screen darkened, Nasir moved to Alina's side. They've brought battle cruisers, he said quietly. I know. Our scans show weapons charging on at least 6 vessels. Alina smiled thinly. Also expected. Admiral Harrison's voice came through on a secure channel. Captain Rice, Earth Command confirms hostile positioning from multiple delegations. The Volution and Arcturus vessels have activated targeting systems. Recommend postponing the demonstration. Alina considered the Admiral's concern. Postponing would be the safe choice, the conventional choice. But humanity hadn't reached this point by being conventional. Negative, Admiral. We proceed as planned. She turned to Nasir. Prepare the core for full activation. Let's show them what 7th dimensional transit really means. 28 minutes later, the Nexus horizon floated seemingly motionless at the center of the observation ring. To external sensors, the ship appeared completely ordinary. No extraordinary energy readings, no exotic particle emissions, nothing to suggest it was anything but a standard human vessel. Attention all observation vessels. Alina broadcast on the common frequency. The demonstration of Earth's 7th dimensional transit capability will commence in 2 minutes. Please ensure your sensors are configured for multispectral recording. On a dozen alien ships, scientists and military officers watched with a mixture of amusement and wariness. Some still believed this was an elaborate human hoax. Others worried it might be something more, a genuine breakthrough that threatened thousands of years of established galactic hierarchy. Begin core activation sequence, Alina ordered. Core activating, Nasir confirmed. Harmonizers engaging. Dimensional resonance detected. Unlike their test flight, this time they would reveal the full capabilities of the Nexus horizon. Not just 7th dimensional transit, but the ability to exist across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously, to be everywhere and nowhere, to move through reality itself rather than merely through space. Dimensional shift in 30 seconds, Sophia announced. Alina addressed the crew. Remember your training. No matter what happens out there, trust in yourselves and in this ship. We are about to change the course of human history. 15 seconds to dimensional shift. On the alien vessels, sensors began to detect unusual energy patterns emanating from the Nexus horizon. Not the massive power surge they would expect from traditional dimensional technology, but something subtler, harmonics that seemed to resonate with space-time itself. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The Nexus horizon didn't disappear in a flash of energy as alien ships did when transitioning dimensions. Instead, it began to shimmer, its edges becoming indistinct, as if the vessel existed in multiple states simultaneously. Then, before the astonished eyes of the gathered delegations, it split into 7 identical copies, each one seemingly solid but occupying slightly different positions in space. We've achieved multi-dimensional manifestation, Nasir reported, his voice filled with quiet triumph. All 7 projections stable. On the alien vessels, chaos erupted. Sensors couldn't process what they were seeing. Was this a holographic trick? Some kind of mass hallucination? The 7 ships moved in perfect synchronization, weaving patterns through space that should have been physically impossible. The Arcturus flagship is charging weapons, Lieutenant Park warned. Alina had expected this. Fear drove people to desperate actions, and what the aliens were witnessing now was their greatest fear realized. A species they had dismissed as primitive suddenly demonstrating technology they couldn't comprehend. Dimensional shift complete, Sophia announced. We can now perceive all assembled vessels across 7 dimensional planes simultaneously. Alina could see it on the enhanced view screen, not just the physical ships but their potential states, their past positions, the dimensional echoes they created in space-time. The alien vessels looked strangely flat, limited to 4 dimensions while the Nexus horizon existed in 7. The Volution cruisers are moving to intercept, Park warned. "Weapons hot. Let them come," Elena said calmly. The first shots fired came from an Arcturus destroyer, pulses of concentrated energy designed to disrupt a ship's structural integrity. But the Nexus horizon no longer existed solely in conventional space. The energy passed harmlessly through one of its dimensional projections, while the primary vessel shifted slightly along a dimensional axis no alien sensor could detect. "No damage," Sophia reported. "Their weapons cannot target us effectively across dimensional boundaries." More ships opened fire now, panic spreading through the alien fleet as they realized the implications. A vessel that could shift between dimensions at will was virtually invulnerable to conventional weapons. It could appear anywhere, strike from any angle, and disappear before countermeasures could be deployed. "The Arcturus flagship is attempting to coordinate a multi-vector attack," Park noted. Elena nodded. Time for the final demonstration. She turned to Nasir. "Execute phase shift alpha." The engineer's fingers danced across his console, adjusting dimensional harmonics with precision that would have been impossible before their breakthrough. The Nexus horizon responded instantly, its 7 projections contracting into a single vessel that began to shift through dimensional planes in rapid sequence. To the alien fleet, it appeared as if the human ship was teleporting, appearing behind the Arcturus flagship, then beside a Volusian cruiser, then within the formation of smaller escort vessels. But it wasn't teleportation. The Nexus horizon was flowing through dimensions, moving with currents that other species couldn't even perceive. "All alien vessels have ceased fire," Park announced. "The Arcturus flagship is hailing us." On screen, Elena ordered. Ambassador Zilth appeared, but the arrogance had vanished from his crystalline features. His scales had paled to a light cyan, a sign of extreme shock among his species. "Captain Reyes," the ambassador began, his translator module struggling to convey the complex emotions in his voice. "The Arcturus Dominion formally requests an explanation of this technology." Elena met his gaze steadily. "As we explained at the assembly, Ambassador, the Nexus horizon doesn't fight against dimensional barriers. It flows with them. Your species spent millennia building increasingly complex technology to force your way through dimensions. We simply asked a different question." The ambassador's translator hesitated, as if struggling to find equivalents for concepts that had no name in his language. "The Arcturus Dominion requests immediate diplomatic discussions regarding this breakthrough." Elena knew what that meant. The galactic power structure had just been upended. Species that had dominated interstellar politics for thousands of years suddenly found themselves technologically outmatched by the newcomers they had laughed at merely weeks ago. "The Earth Alliance welcomes diplomatic engagement," Elena replied evenly. "But first, let me be clear. This technology belongs to humanity. We will determine how and when it is shared." After the transmission ended, a moment of silence fell over the bridge. They had done it. Not just demonstrated 7th-dimensional transit, but revealed capabilities that would forever change humanity's place in the galaxy. "Orders, Captain?" Sophia asked. Elena looked at the view screen, where the once threatening alien fleet now maintained a respectful distance. The mockery had stopped. The laughter had ended. In its place was something new. Respect tinged with fear. "Take us home, Lieutenant Commander," Elena said. "We have a future to build." As the Nexus horizon shifted once more, flowing through dimensional currents back toward Earth, Elena considered the journey ahead. Humanity wouldn't conquer the galaxy as some ancient species had tried to do. They wouldn't hoard their knowledge or use it to dominate others. Instead, they would do what humans had always done best: adapt, innovate, and imagine possibilities where others saw only limitations. They would navigate not just the physical universe, but the currents of diplomacy and cooperation that would define the new galactic order. The day the galactic laughter ended marked the beginning of humanity's true journey among the stars, not as latecomers or junior partners, but as pioneers who had discovered a new way to view the universe itself. And that, Elena thought as Earth appeared on their view screen, was worth all the mockery in the galaxy.